President Donald Trump has officially sanctioned South Africa, citing concerns over the country's land expropriation policies and its legal actions against Israel at the International Court of Justice. The order also includes plans to prioritize the resettlement of South African farmers, particularly Afrikaners, as refugees in the United States. The U.S. administration argues that South Africa's recent land expropriation law discriminates against the white Afrikaner minority. Further, the U.S. opposes South Africa's case against Israel, which accuses Israel of genocide due to its military actions in Gaza. What do you think about this? Let's hear your comments. White Afrikaners, are you taking the opportunity to be refugees in the USA?
Groups representing some of South Africa's white minority responding to this plan to offer them refugee status as well and resettlement in the United States, saying thank you, but no thank you. So this plan was detailed in an executive order President Trump signed on Friday that stopped all aid and financial assistance to South Africa as punishment for what the Trump administration said were rights violations by the government against some of its white citizens.
Trump just signed an executive order to give refugee status to white people. You can't make this shit up. He signed an executive order today. It's on whitehouse.gov. And it's about South Africa. That's weird. Here's the executive order. He basically says that the government of South Africa is illegally taking land and property from the ethnic minority in South Africa. In case you don't know who that is, he's talking about white people. Now, in his executive order, he talks about how the government of South Africa is dismantling programs that are aimed to create equal opportunity in employment and education and business. Yeah, I couldn't imagine a government that would dismantle programs that would take away the equal opportunity of employment, education, and business. But Donald Trump is very upset that South Africa is doing this, and he signed an executive order giving refugee status to any ethnic minority Afrikaner who the government's taking their shit away, which specifically is happening to white people. Now, there's some very, very important shit to talk about here. The guy who ran his entire campaign on fuck refugees just signed an executive order to make white people refugees. Number two, how does Donald Trump know what's happening in South Africa? In fact, why is America First Donald Trump so concerned about what's happening in South Africa? Oh, I gotta guess the real president is concerned about it. That's why. But thirdly, and most importantly, he literally talks about in this executive order how it is egregious that they are dismantling these programs to create equal opportunity in employment, education, and business, which is the same fucking thing he's doing here. So what does that mean? That means that Donald Trump understands that diversity, equity, and inclusion in America is necessary because of white supremacy, but he don't give a fuck. He also understands that white people in South Africa stole and hoarded resources during apartheid, and the government simply taking stolen shit back, but he don't like that because white supremacy. So this should tell you two things definitively. Number one, President Musk is in charge. And number two, during the campaign when he was talking about immigrants, clearly, as we all said he was only talking about non-white immigrants.
Did you know that South Africa has one of the highest unemployment rates in the world at 32%? And according to the South Africa Human Rights Commission, whites living in poverty make up about 1% of the population compared to 64% of blacks. And whites represent a small minority, about 7% of the whole country. However, they own over 70% of private farmlands. The reason I bring all of this up is because the president is making national headlines because he signed an executive order that essentially stops all aid and financial assistance to South Africa. Now, he said this is because of the Expropriation Act 13 of 2024, which is listed in the executive order. You could read it. I'm going to read a little bit of it. It says, in shocking disregard of its citizens' rights, the Republic of South Africa recently enacted the Expropriation Act 13 of 2024 to enable the government of South Africa to seize ethnic minority Afrikaners, basically majority white South Africans, agricultural property without compensation. Now, this act, according to this executive order, follows countless government policies designed to dismantle equal opportunity in employment, education, and business, hateful rhetoric, and government actions fueling disproportionate violence against racially disfavored landowners. The executive order goes on to say the United States shall promote the resettlement of Afrikaner refugees escaping government-sponsored race-based discrimination, including racially discriminatory property confiscation. Now, there's a lot more in this executive order, but this is what's making headlines right now. As you can imagine, and not surprisingly, the president of South Africa denied that this is true. A Time magazine article recently described the Expropriation Act 13 of 2024 as a land reform policy aimed to resolve ownership inequity created by the pre-1994 apartheid system of white minority rule.
You know that there's one group that's exempted from Trump's refugee ban, and it's white South Africans who are facing quote-unquote racial discrimination. White South Africans, why does that sound familiar? They're the only ones that are refugees in need of help? What?
President Donald Trump has officially sanctioned South Africa, citing concerns over the country's land expropriation policies and its legal actions against Israel at the International Court of Justice. The order also includes plans to prioritize the resettlement of South African farmers, particularly Afrikaners, as refugees in the United States. The U.S. administration argues that South Africa's recent land expropriation law discriminates against the white Afrikaner minority. Further, the U.S. opposes South Africa's case against Israel, which accuses Israel of genocide due to its military actions in Gaza. What do you think about this? Let's hear your comments. White Afrikaners, are you taking the opportunity to be refugees in the USA?
President Donald Trump has signed an executive order cutting all U.S. aid to South Africa and extending refugee status to white Afrikaners. He is doing this claiming that the South African government is violating their rights. The order alleges that white farmers face violent attacks and that the country's new land expropriation law targets them unfairly by allowing land seizure without compensation. In this tweet from 2018, he even says here South African government is now seizing land from white farmers. South Africa has rejected these claims, calling them misinformation. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa says that they are a democracy and they value all of their citizens, black and white, and stated that Afrikaners remain the most economically privileged group in the country. Despite Trump's offer, leading Afrikaner groups such as Solidarity and AfriForum declined the resettlement plan, reaffirming their commitment to stay in their country. Solidarity's CEO said, quote, "We are not going anywhere." Many are saying that Trump's decision was influenced heavily by South African-born advisor Elon Musk. This decision has obviously caused a lot of controversy. Many are criticizing him for offering refugee status to South Afrikaners while deporting the people here in the U.S. that are seeking asylum as well.
Immigration updates. While we thought that the refugee programs in the U.S. were on hold for the time being, turns out Trump just issued a statement saying that he wants the U.S. To prioritize refugees from South Africa of European descent. I wonder why.
Breaking immigration news that is so ridiculous that I had to double check it to make sure it was true. Donald Trump signed an executive order to prioritize the resettlement of a particular group of African refugees. Is this crazy? Which group of African refugees would Donald Trump single out for special treatment? The answer is South Africans, but only those who are white. So to all my white friends in Cape Town, Pretoria, and Johannesburg, I say, let's get you settled in America.
So the only thing that Donald Trump can do for white Muzungus, white South Africans, is to bring them to America's refugee. You don't want to go America's refugee. This life no balance, so. So the only help Donald Trump see won't give you now is to bring you people to America as refugee. I beg, when are you going? You want to leave everything you have in South Africa to America to stay there as refugee. The land where they complain now the day. Billionaires, South African billionaires are the white good company, as in company that are doing well in South Africa, are owned by white South African. The Muzungus. Yes, you heard me. And you want to go to America as a refugee. And Donald Trump, President of America, you have signed it already. You have signed it already to bring them to America as white refugee. I don't understand. Okay, guys, I said let me come and know if they are going, when they are going.
So now that we're all on the same page with who's in charge, could we go ahead and talk about how these people went from not wanting immigrants at all and we need to get rid of immigrants and everything, and sign an executive order to get rid of refugees from day one in office, to then inviting white South Africans to the US on the refugee status? If you guys don't realize how much these people don't want other people of other skin color in this country, something is wrong. So all the people that were talking about, their jobs and all these different things, and, getting rid of the immigrants, it's going to make it better for different people and stuff. Nope. Because guess what? This guy was like, nope. We want the white South Africans. The whiter, the better. I mean, there's more to it than that, but just know these people don't want you. They don't want you. They don't want the brown and black people. And for all you brown and black people still supporting, still being like, you know what? Yeah, I love that they're getting rid of the immigrants. They're just getting rid of certain type of immigrants.
At this point, Trump, just say what you gotta say, bro. Just say what you gotta say. You came in office with this pro-mass deportation, deporting all the immigrants, and we got to shut the border down, and it's going to be a merge system, and they got to come over with the merge, and they got to wait in line, and people come over the right way. But then you sign a strategic order for South Africans that lack melanin to come over here because they've been so brutalized, and we just gotta help them, and let's seize funding to Africa, and we know that place to be an apartheid state. Nelson Mandela. The people who suffer from DEI, get this one, we gotta give reparations to. And you said we on a merit-based state system, but you take people who got the credentials, people of color that got the credentials, and move them out the way and put people in that work for Fox News to run the United States military. Is it a merit-based system? What do DEI really mean? Why don't you just say it, bro, and let's get it over. Let's get it going on. Say what you need to say. Them people went over there and took that land historically, and now the people stand up to take their land back, and it's the most brutal event according to history. So we gonna go around all the things we put in place for the border and let them in? Why don't you just say what you need to say?
We thought the refugee programs are on hold, but I guess there are some exceptions. Yesterday, Trump ordered the US to prioritize refugees from South Africa from European descent. Apparently, these people are being discriminated and their lands are being taken by the South African government. So while the entire refugee program is on hold, Trump is making exceptions.
Breaking news! President Donald Trump has signed an executive order promoting the resettlement of South African minority farmers in the United States as refugees. President Donald Trump has signed a new executive order affecting U.S. aid to South Africa. Trump has officially frozen financial assistance, citing concerns over South Africa's new land expropriation law, which he argues is unfair to minorities. President Trump has taken a strong stance against the policy, leading to the suspension of aid. Trump, who suspended the U.S. refugee admissions program less than 2 weeks ago, has also used this executive order to promote the resettlement of South African minority farmers in the United States as refugees. Section 2, Subsection B of Addressing Egregious Actions of the Republic of South Africa states that the United States shall promote the resettlement of refugees escaping government-sponsored race-based discrimination, including racially discriminatory property confiscation. This comes 4 days after South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa contacted Elon Musk, a notable South African, to reiterate South Africa's constitutionally embedded values of respect for the rule of law, justice, fairness, and equality. Previously, the South Africa-born tech billionaire joined in the criticism, asking on X why Ramaphosa had openly racist ownership laws. What impact will this decision have on global diplomacy? How will South Africa respond? And what does this mean for U.S. foreign policy? Stay tuned for more updates. Until next time, this has been Gil Bates with Against the Tide News.
Okay, so boom. Groups representing some of South Africa's white minority respond Saturday to a plan by Donald Trump to offer them refugee status and resettlement in the United States by saying, thanks, but no thanks. The plan was detailed in an executive order Trump signed Friday that stopped all aid and financial assistance to South Africa as punishment for what the Trump administration said were rights violations by the government against some of the white citizens. The Trump administration accused the South African government of allowing violent attacks on white Afrikaners. I guess that's what they call the white Africans. Farmers, and introducing a land expropriation law that enables it to seize ethnic minority Afrikaners agricultural property without compensation. Well, they're 1% and they own all the land. Why can't they get some of their land back from them? I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, they're not completely desolate. The South African government was denied there are any concerted attacks on white farmers and has said that Trump's description of the new law is full of misinformation and distortions. Well, baby, that's what you get for listening to co-president Musk, baby, without doing your research. Research is a must, honey. Afrikaners are descended from mainly Dutch, but also French and German colony settlers who first arrived in South Africa more than 300 years ago. They speak Afrikaans, a language derived from Dutch that developed in South Africa and are distinct from other white South Africans who come from British and other backgrounds. Together, whites make up 70% of South Africa's population of 62 million. And why are they hurting? Why are they oppressed? Let's keep reading. On Saturday, two of the most prominent groups representing Afrikaners said they would not be taking up Trump's offer of resettlement in the U.S. Our members work here. We want to stay here. They are going to stay here, said Dirk Herman, chief executive of the Afrikaner trade union Solidarity, which says it represents around 2 million people. We are committed to build a future here. We are not going anywhere. At the same press conference, Kelly Curl, the CEO of the Afrikaner lobby group AfriForum, said we have to state categorical we don't want to move elsewhere. Yeah, because they don't want to move because they live where it's rich, baby. Resources. Africa, that's why they call Africa the motherland, okay? That's why they don't want to leave because they find so much resources there. Our cobalt for our phones come from there. A lot of it, minerals and everything, comes from Africa. Why do you think the Chinese is coming over there building stuff? Trying to take over. Man, okay. Trump's move to sanction South Africa, a key U.S. trading partner in Africa, came after he and his South African born advisor, Elon Musk, see you guys? He accused its black leadership of having anti white stands. Well, well, well. Who is having anti minority stance here in America? You guys all know. But the portrayal of Afrikaners as a downtrodden group that needed to be saved would surprise most South Africans, which they don't need saving. It is ironic that the executive order makes provisions for refugee status in the U.S. for a group in South Africa that remains amongst the most economically privileged. South Africa's foreign ministry said it also criticized the Trump administration's own policies, saying the focus on Afrikaners came while vulnerable people in the U.S. from other parts of the world are being deported and denied asylum despite real hardship. Like they say, they just want to make America super white again. Good luck with that. There was a campaign of misinformation and propaganda aimed at South Africa. The ministry said South African President Cyril Ramaphosa's spokesperson said South Africa is a constitutional democracy. We value all South Africans, black and white. The assertion that Afrikaners face arbitrary deprivation and therefore need to flee the country of their birth is an exaggeration devoid of all truth. Whites in South Africa still generally have a much better standard of living than blacks. More than 30 years after the end of the apartheid system of white minority rule in 1994, despite being a small minority, whites own around 70% of South Africa's private farmland. A study in 2021 by the South Africa Human Rights Commission said 1% of whites were living in poverty compared to 64% of blacks. Come on now, y'all. Redressing the wrongs of colonialism. Shida by Jedi, a market trader of Johannesburg, said she hadn't seen white people being mistreated in South Africa. There you go. Trump should have actually come from America to South Africa to try to see what was happening for himself and not just take the word of Elon Musk, who hasn't lived in his country for the longest of time, who doesn't even relate to South Africans. Damn. So he's been in America so long. Wow. They're going in on Elon Musk. Trump's actions against South Africa has given international attention to a sentiment among some white South Africans that they are being discriminated against as a form of payback for apartheid. The leaders of an apartheid government are Afrikaners. Solidarity, Afroforum, and others are strongly opposed to the new land exportation law, saying it will target land owned by whites who have worked to develop the land for years. They also say an equal constitutionist language law that's recently been passed seeks to remove or limit their Afrikaans language in schools, while they have often criticized South Africa's affirmative action policies in business that promote an interest of blacks in racist laws. Yeah, y'all can't make this up. Y'all can't make this up. This government is allowing a certain section of the population to be targeted. said Afroform, who thanked Trump for raising the case of South Afrikaners. But Carl said Afrikaners are committed to South Africa. The South African government says the laws that have been criticized are aimed at the difficult task of readdressing the wrongs of colonialism and then nearly a half century of apartheid, when blacks were stripped of their land and almost all their rights. So basically, the land that white people owe in Africa belongs to the blacks. Just give it to the Africans. Whatever. What do you guys think about this? I mean, the white people are like, nah, we ain't going. Yeah, you know that Musk guy, he doing too much. He's spreading lies. He don't know what's going on here. He won't step foot here. You know, honestly, you guys, I think Musk should be deported back to South Africa. If that is such a concern for him, why isn't he in South Africa? You know, he's a billionaire. He can help them out if they're in poverty. But I don't see him going there helping them. Isn't some of these white people in South Africa in poverty? Why isn't he helping them? It's a lot to think about before you just go accuse somebody and now you're stopping funding over a lie and you haven't even fact checked it. Says a lot. Says a lot. So now you're thinking you're affecting the blacks, but guess what? You're also affecting the whites. Well, good luck with that, Mr. Trump. You just bit yourself in the ass and you look like a fool.